TheAntiTerrorist. Thank you for all of your emails and your messages of support, and for staying part of the conversation. Now, this topic is a huge one, and I've been reticent to broadcast on it for a number of reasons. Firstly, there is a massive amount of fear out there on this topic at the moment, and I didn't want to add to it. And secondly, there is already a lot of information out there for those who are prepared to look for it. But I have recently been given proprietary internal documents that the pharmaceutical companies would rather you didn't see. So I thought I would share those with you. So I'd like to address 3 or 4 aspects in this broadcast. Firstly, is it or is it not a Frankenvirus, a lab-created concoction? Secondly, how safe is it? Third, what are the implications, legal or otherwise? And fourth, what can we do, if anything? Now, you might know what the word responsibility means on an intellectual level, and you may well have an understanding of it that empowers you to deal with people effectively as an employer or a teacher, for instance. But I believe that it's not until you have children of your own that you actually get it. It's a bit like gaining balance. When your mother or father is teaching you how to ride a bicycle, they tell you that you have to keep your handlebars straight and keep the bike moving forward by pedaling and so on. And you understand the steps that you need to take, and you follow them as best you can, but sure enough, you take the odd painful fall every now and then. At some point, though, the penny drops and you get it. You get balance, a momentary understanding that you can't unlearn. In the moment that you get that you're 100% accountable for another life, you understand what responsibility truly is. It moves from an abstract concept to the purely intuitive. And I want to make it perfectly clear, I'm not a doctor and I'm not here to give you medical advice. And I'm not here to save the world from vaccinations either. What you do with yourself and the lives that you're accountable for is your business. What I am committed to doing, though, as a messenger, is to lay all the cards face up on the table so that you can make a play that isn't blind. Part of being responsible is knowing all of the facts before you make a decision that could affect the health, safety, and welfare of the people around you and the people you're responsible for. Is it not? My issue is that we're never given all of the facts. I'm damn certain that if everyone had all of the facts regarding Iraq, we wouldn't be supporting that war. And if we had all the facts regarding vaccinations, the average housewife wouldn't be running out to get her kids shot up with cat vomit and monkey spunk. So this broadcast is essentially for people with a mind that's even slightly ajar, and who wish to make an informed decision about the H1N1 vaccine. And for those of you who still believe that vaccines are the greatest thing since sliced white bread, here's the bog standard advice from the CDC.
Roll up your sleeve. Protect yourself.
Well, there you go, sleepers. Now you have everything you need to enjoy the rest of your dream, and you may now go and find out who's won the latest heat of Dancing with the Stars. It's important to remember that this fiasco is a rerun. Remember this?
Remember the swine flu scare of 1976? That was the year the U.S. government told us all that swine flu could turn out to be a killer that could spread across the nation. And Washington decided that every man, woman, and child in the nation should get a shot to prevent a nationwide outbreak, a pandemic. Well, 46 million of us obediently took the shot. And now 4,000 Americans are claiming damages from Uncle Sam amounting to $3.5 billion because of what happened when they took that shot. By far the greatest number of the claims, 2/3 of them, are for neurological damage or even death, allegedly triggered by the flu shot.
Now, contrary to the hyperbole you're hearing from the paid professional whores in the mainstream media, this is a lab-created virus, and it's been released, accidentally or otherwise, for several different reasons. So for education purposes, let's first examine the lab-created aspect.
Deadly strain of human swine flu, never seen before.
This is a virus the world has really never seen before.
A strain of swine flu that it hasn't seen before.
And the virus is one health officials have never seen before.
Are we actually fighting a man-made tragedy? Some are asking.
It is an intriguing question. What if the swine flu virus that has killed 61 people and spread to 30 countries was not something that occurred in nature, but was instead man-made in a laboratory? That is the question that Dr. Adrian Gibbs is raising. He's a respected scientist who was involved in the research that led to the development of Tamiflu. He claims the new swine flu virus might have been accidentally created in a lab by scientists using eggs to grow viruses and make new vaccines.
It might be some simple error that has not been recognized.
The 1918 flu, called the Spanish flu, was extracted from the corpse of a dead Inuit woman who died of the disease in Brevig Mission, Alaska, a small Inuit village, and it was recombined with, combined with other forms of flu to create this particular H1N1 that's been declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization. It contains two forms of human flu, two forms of swine flu, and one form of avian flu.
Now, with a little time and effort, you'll find that Madsen isn't the only chap asserting that this is a Frankenvirus. So I hope you'll take the time out to do that research. In the meantime, why don't we hear from one of the scientists responsible for creating this monstrosity? But before we do, let's take a layman's look at how these viruses operate. This will take a few minutes, but it'll be worth it.
But for our purposes, let's represent a virus by this unpleasant fellow. For all his nastiness, he isn't all that complex. In fact, he only has 8 genes. We, by comparison, have more than 20,000. We're going to look at 2 of these 8 flu genes, one because it's responsible for getting the virus into a cell, and the other for getting it out again. Flu gets into cells with the hemagglutinin gene.
So in order to penetrate cells, you could imagine that the hemagglutinin was sort of like a key.
A key which we'll refer to simply as H. And that key unlocks the cell so that the virus can get inside.
If it gets into your cell, it'll take over the machinery of the cell and start making more copies of itself.
But now the virus has a problem. These copies are stuck to that cell. That's where the other gene comes in. It's called neuraminidase, or N for short.
Neuraminidase is critical for release.
Getting back out.
out.
The virus copies use N to cut themselves free. And now each of them, armed with their own H's and N's, are off to infect more cells. In birds, there are 16 different kinds of H genes and 9 N genes. Every flu is some combination of these. Humans have only caught a few. The Hong Kong flu, which killed nearly 1 million people when it broke out in 1968, gets in with H3 and out with N2, so it's called H3N2. In 1918, the virus which killed 50 million people was H1N1. Now there's the avian flu that's got everyone so worried, and it has a new combination of H's and N's, H5N1. The avian flu's H key, or hemagglutinin gene, can open the lock between birds and people, that is, transmit from birds to humans. But it still cannot open the lock between people, spread from one person to another, yet. But here's the problem. Once it's in our bodies, the hemagglutinin gene can change. It's as if it can fit the lock, but it can't turn it, which would be great if it stayed that way. But a virus's genetic recipe constantly changes, or mutates, as scientists like to say. And if just the right changes take place in the hemagglutinin gene, those changes could open the lock. Allowing it to spread between people. But exactly what are those changes?
Right, so here we can see it.
Going back to Taubenberger's recipe for the 1918 virus, Ian Wilson and his colleagues at the Scripps Research Institute found the answer to what the 1918 virus may have needed to spread between humans. They pinpointed 2 changes, or mutations.
Only 2 mutations were sufficient to change the virus hemagglutinin to adapt to human receptors.
So, could those same 2 mutations in the avian flu's hemagglutinin gene allow it to spread between humans also? To find out, they tried those same 2 mutations.
To our surprise, we found that, in fact, we couldn't very easily change it with the mutations that occurred in 1918. So that suggests that it might actually be a little bit more difficult, and it might take a little more time for an H5N1 virus to be able to adapt to human lung cells.
And that's good news. The Scripps team believes the H5N1, or avian flu, doesn't seem to adapt easily so that people can infect other people. Back at the CDC, Tumpy is taking a different approach to find out why these viruses are so deadly. Instead of experimenting with tiny variations in a flu gene, Tumpy is testing entire genes. He's looking at each of the 1918 virus's 8 genes one by one to see which ones caused it to be so lethal and which ones should be the target of new antiviral drugs.
New antiviral drugs. Can you say ka-ching?